Hi Ron, thanks for joining today's shows. I'm with Ron Rickard. Today we are discussing about the 1031 exchange program. Ron, can you give me an introduction about yourself more?
Yeah. Uh, my name is Ron Ricard. I work for a company called IPX or Investment Property Exchange. We are what is known as a qualified intermediary. We help you do 1031 exchanges. Whenever you do an exchange, it requires the use of a third party. That's us. And I've been doing this more than 20 years.
What is 1031 exchange, Ron? Like a lot of people, first-time home
Yeah.
buyers are there,
No,
right?
that's a
Yeah,
that's a
I
very
think
important place to start. 1031 just refers to the section of the tax code that allows you to sell investment real estate, buy replacement investment real estate, and in doing so, you get to defer paying taxes on the profit that you made. So let's say you have a rental house, you want to sell that and buy a fourplex. You would list the property for them at the close of escrow. The money comes to a third party like us. You
mhm.
then go find the fourplex. We send the money to the escrow there. And because the client never touched the money because we had it, they get to defer paying taxes on the capital gain that they made on that property.
Okay. Oh, can't we do it without a 1031 exchange? So we can still do it, but only thing is you pay taxes for your investments, right? That's
Right,
what.
exactly. So let's say you bought a property for 200,000, and today you're selling it for 1,000. You have a $300,000 gain. If you don't do an exchange, you're probably going to pay about $100,000 in taxes,
Mhm.
and now you only have $400,000 to go spend on the next property. But by doing the exchange, that extra $100,000 that you're not paying to the government yet, you get to use that and buy more real estate with it.
Okay. Let's say like you're a first time investor who's starting out there. Okay. So he buys the property now. Once he buys the property, is there anything minimum duration he should hold on to that before sell and buy the other property, or how does that work?
No, so the key is it needs to be property held for investment purposes, as
Correct.
opposed. And there are a couple of things that don't qualify. For example, a primary residence or second home does not qualify because that's for personal use. But more importantly, and to your point, it also has to do with you cannot be flipping a property. So if you buy something, fix it up, and sell it, the IRS does not consider that to be held for investment purposes. They consider that to be held for resale purposes. So, the question is, how long do you need to rent the property for? And the tax code doesn't give us a specific amount of time. Most accountants say if you really want to be safe, you'll rent it for at least 2 years. But the tax code doesn't say that specifically.
Okay, so you say I have a lot of clients ask me that question. For example, you bought a single first time a property, okay, and now it's your primary residence, okay. But the second time you bought one more property that becomes a primary residence, right? So the first property, whatever they bought it for themselves, that can be considered as an investment property, or how does that work?
Well, the key is what is the use of the property when they sell the property.
Okay,
So if the using is when they're selling the property has been their primary residence, 1031 would not apply to them. Just to make sure, many years ago, when you sold a primary residence, another primary residence, that was called a 1034 exchange. That's gone.
Hmm.
Now, when you sell a primary residence, if you're single, you get to keep the first $200 of profit tax. If you're married, you get to keep $500,000 of profit tax free. But if your profit is more than that, when you sell your primary residence, you pay tax on that excess gain.
Correct. So basically, you qualify the property as an investment property based on the tax returns, or it might be based on the rental you are getting it. So
Right.
based
I mean,
on,
how does the IRS know the property is a rental? It's because you're showing rental income on your tax return. If you aren't showing rental income, then the IRS is going to assume that you're not using that property for investment purposes. So how you report the property to the IRS is very important.
yeah, that's very. I think then how do you show that? That's very matters then. So what properties qualifies? Does the single family homes or a condos, or what properties qualifies for this 1031 exchange?
Any kind of investment real estate. It could be a rental home, it could be an apartment building, it could be a commercial office building, it could be a farm, it could be even be bare land. I just did an exchange where somebody sold a conservation easement on their property. They had a 2,000 acre property up in the mountains. and they sold the conservation easement, and that qualifies for 1031. So any kind of investment real estate, and the good news is any kind of investment real estate can be exchanged for any other kind. So you can sell a rental house and buy a shopping center. You can sell bare land and buy an apartment building. It's any kind of investment real estate for anywhere in the United States. So and that's another thing. It can be, you can sell in California, buy in Texas, you can sell in Hawaii, buy in California, anywhere in the United States, and you're still deferring both state and federal taxes.
I think that was a great thing. You said even the land can be qualified for the investment property. Did they
Yes.
get any rent for that, or like just a bare land you can get it?
Well, the key of a bare land is considered to be held for appreciation. And unfortunately, that same rule does not apply for homes and condos and things like that. But land is considered to be held for appreciation. So even though you're not necessarily getting income from it, it still does qualify for as 1031.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's great. Okay. And how long it will take to complete this 1031 exchange? Like, or when do we start this 1031 exchange? During the, let me start with the real estate transaction wise. For example, you put in a, you first is like you decide to sell your current property, right? Like, and you start there, or like after you sell your property or go into a contract, you start the 1031 exchange.
Right. So the process of the 1031 itself is actually fairly simple. You, as the real estate agent, are going to list the property just like a regular real estate transaction. Once you're in contract with a buyer, that's when we get involved.
Yes.
We work with the title company handling the sale of the property, or if you're on the East Coast, the closing attorney. And so that there are some agreements that need to be signed before escrow closes. At the close of escrow, the money comes to us. Once you're in contract to buy the replacement property, same thing. We work with the escrow officer or closing attorney on the purchase side. I call what we do the escrow between the escrows, but you're going to go through the regular process and the regular purchase process, or just the link in between.
Okay, okay. So basically, once the seller basically goes into a contract, then that's where you start come jump in. And within what is like once you sell the property, within how many days they need to finalize the other property? What is the duration on that?
So that's probably one of the most important things to note is that this is a very strict timeline. You can't, sell the property, wait 2 years for the market to go down and buy the replacement. In an exchange, from the day escrow closes, you need to know what you're going to buy within 45 days and close escrow within 180 days, which is almost 6 months. So 45 days to tell us what you're going to buy, 180 days to actually buy it. Both those clocks start the day escrow closes. So that 45-day clock really is the critical one. You need to be in contract. Ideally, you're in a firm contract on what you're going to purchase by that 45 days.
So you should learn as like it's a 45 days. You should finalize your property. That's the next property, and 120, 180 days, right? Within a 180 days, you need to close the transaction. Okay. I
Exactly.
think this 1031 exchange program, right? It's a great beneficial. For example, you have an investment property here, and your kids are grown up and go into the colleges, right? And you want to buy in a property for saving the rent for the kids. That's a great program, right? Like you can sell.
Well, you have to be careful about that
Mhm.
because if they're going to school and they're still considered to be a dependent of yours, you
Mm.
can't charge dependents rent
Okay.
if you're showing them on your tax return. Now, what I have seen people do is buy a property, have their kids have multiple, roommates who pay rent, whatever.
Mhm.
That's something they need to discuss with a tax professional as to how to structure it in a way that might work. But you cannot charge your own kid rent if you're also calling them a dependent on your taxes. So be very careful about that.
Yeah, I think it's a great call out. I think a lot of people think like that, but it's all depends on how do you work with the CPA.
Exactly.
Correct. Yeah. So this is like you can, as you said, you can buy any properties, right? Like what is the limit? For example, you sold your property for 1 million. Your next property can be lesser than a 1 million, or like should be a more than a million now. The next property what you buy.
This is probably the most uh misunderstood question I get asked. Many people have a misunderstanding about how much to reinvest, but the very simple answer is all of it. If you sell for $1 million, you want to buy for at least $1 million. So if you want to buy 2 or 3 or 5 properties that add up to $1 million, that's okay. If you want to buy more than $1 million, that's okay. But if you buy less, then you pay tax on the difference. That difference is referred to as boot. But as a rule, you want to buy equal or greater in order to defer all of your taxes. So note, it's not the equity, it's not the profit. I don't care how much you bought it for. I don't care how much you depreciated. All I care about is how much you're selling it for. And you want to buy equal or greater to what you're selling it for.
Okay. So, for example, it's a 1 million property. Let's break it down to a simple things. For example, it's a 1 million property and it's a 700K is your loan and 300K is the what the you have the investment there. So if you sell it, it is not counting for a 300K for, let's, if you sell it for 1 million, it is like you're not counting for a 300K. You are counting it for 1 million. So your next property should be more than a 1 million now.
That's correct. So that $300,000 of equity, of cash that comes from the sale, that goes as a down payment towards buying something worth at least $1 million. So effectively what that means is the loan that you have on the property needs to be replaced either with another loan, or if you want, you can use your own personal cash to do that. But for most people, they get another loan to replace that. So equal or greater, use all your cash, and you do need to replace the value of the loan.
Okay, that's good. And see, this right now, the market is going changing towards a seller's market to a buyer's market. People are thinking more about the recession coming in, right? But do you think it's a right time still for a 1031 exchange for the investors out there? What do you think on the 1031 exchange?
I
1031
think it's a
exchange.
great I think it's a great time to do an exchange, and let me tell you why. For the last 2 years, up until middle of this year, 2022, um, the market was absolutely crazy. Prices were going up, but I had a lot of clients who were very much afraid of not finding a replacement property, and many of them didn't because there were so many offers on property. It was not easy to find good property at good value, and so while the market's hot, it seems like a great time to do it, and a lot of people did it, but that's not necessarily the best time to do it. So now I think it's a great time to do it because prices haven't really started falling. In some places they have a little bit, but they're pretty stable. And so you're getting a good price for your property, but more importantly, there's a lot more inventory out there right now. And because there's more inventory out there, you're gonna have some sellers who are a little bit more, I don't want to use the term desperate, but
Yeah.
more looking to wanting to sell. And if you had 100 properties on the market and now you have 500 properties on the market, depending where you're looking at, that's a lot more inventory to choose from. So once you find a buyer for your property, you're still getting a good price, and it's easier to find replacement property. So I think people are saying, well, what about the interest rates? Well, yeah, interest rates have gone up, but guess what? They're probably going to come back down again also. Then you just refinance the property. So if it can make sense today at whatever the interest rate is you're going to pay, wonderful. And then as interest rates go down, it'll be even better.
Yeah, I think it's a. I'm telling. That's what I call out. It's a great time if you want to buy a properties now, because you can bargain for a great discounts. Again, as you said, it depends on the locations where you are finalizing, right? For example, you want to sell something here and buy something in a Stockton, because the Stockton the prices have gone down drastically, which was in the upwards trends. It's gone up. Like for example, in the San Joaquin counties, like anywhere in the Lathrop or anywhere in the Tracy, right? Even in the Livermore areas, I see the prices drop. For example, here, as you said, you have bought one property here. It's like for example, you bought a primary residence in somewhere in the South Bay, and you want to change it into a duplex or a multiple units. Correct. It might be a great time to do it, right?
Yeah.
And one
Yep.
more question on this, like for example, is it, for example, I sell one property, but can I buy two, three properties? Is that okay with
Yes.
31?
Yes. Did you get by 2, 3? I had a client one day buy 18 houses. When she sold her one house in Palo Alto, she went to Las Vegas, bought 18 of them. There, as long as in total you spend all the money, you can buy as many as you want.
Oh, that's great program for the investors to use it, right? Like, so how much this whole the process for the 1031 exchange or setting up an account cost, like for generally in what is an estimate for the fees for that?
It's very small, actually. Currently, our fee for doing an exchange is $1,000 when you sell the property, and $250 for each property you buy. So, in terms of the economics of the exchange, it's a very small price considering that how much money you're saving in taxes
Yeah, I
in most
think
cases.
you pay less, but you make more, right? Like you are investing on the future for you
Yep,
yourself.
exactly.
I think it's a great exchange program for the investors. I believe, right?
This is what makes the wheels of investing go. This is what greases the wheels because you do not have taxes every time you sell a property. I mean, if you sell stocks or mutual funds or almost any other asset, and
Yeah,
you sell it, even if you sell one stock, buy another stock the same day, it doesn't matter. You're going to pay taxes on that. Real estate is the one asset that you can sell without having to pay taxes because of this wonderful program that's been around for more than 100 years.
yeah. So, Ron, one question: like, how many years you have been doing this 1031 exchange program?
Coming up on 21 years.
Great. So, how many economic downturns you have seen?
I started during the what do you,
Hang out there. I think Ron is there. I think it's connection issue.
the high tech meltdown in the early 2000s, crash in 2008, 9, 10. And so this was most significant, the third kind of significant downturn. But this is not 2008
Yeah.
by any means. This is much more like 2002 because it's not being driven by the economics of real estate. This is or loans or financial. This is having to do with inflation, having to do with things that don't affect real estate. As soon as that gets stabilized, real estate is going to be coming back very quickly.
I think that's what I'm calling out to everybody. It's not the same as a 2008 crash.
No, nowhere near.
Because there was the different economy always, everything there. Here right now the inventory also is not much in the South Bay when you compare it in, right? Other places, I know it's because of interest rates is driving in, but there's still a lot of buyers out there.
Yeah. And let me add one thing. Some people think, well, this is 2008, 9, and again, I'm going to wait for prices to go down, 50% or in some markets 80%. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. Things are going to soften. The really hot markets are going to come down a little bit, but you're not going to see a huge crash. You're not going to see the foreclosures and short sales and pricing going through the floor like we did 10, 12 years ago. This is not that kind of a recession. This is not that kind of a market. So if you're waiting for prices to go down 50% before you buy, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, that's what I call out. I think it's because there's a lot of bias out there. Okay, things have changed from 2008 to now because already during the 2020 or 2021, right, the price has jumped so much. Even if a 10-15% drop now, it is not making any difference
Yeah,
because for example, you have bought a house in 2017 for what, maybe a 900. During the pandemic it went to all the way to 1.7. Okay, so 10% drop,
nothing.
it will not go back to 2017 prices right
No,
now.
no.
And as the interest rate goes up, your affordability also drops.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you, Ron, so much. I think it's a great the 1031 exchange for all the investors out there. And if somebody wants to contact, your contact number is already there on the screen. They can contact you. Anything you want to add up, Ron?
No, thank you for having me. I'm happy to answer questions for people anytime, even before you list the property. It's always good to get educated to make sure you understand what the rules are before you head too deeply into this thing. So I'm here to answer questions, and I'm not going anywhere. So look forward to working with you, and look forward to working with you again, Nag.
Thank you so much.